My mother-in-law mocked me for being just a secretary at her dream company. She bragged about applying for CEO position. At the interview, I walked in. Actually, I'm the owner. She nearly fainted when she realized who really controlled her future. I never intended to hide my success. Growing up in a modest Boston, I learned early on that humility and perseverance mattered more than status. My father, a mechanic, would return home with grease-stained hands and a weary smile, while my mother worked back-to-back shifts as a nurse, determined to put me through college. Emily, she'd often say, success isn't measured by what you own, it's defined by who you are. Her words stayed with me. By 23, I had started a tech consulting firm in my garage. 2 years later, it had grown into M Tech Solutions, now worth over $200 million. Yet, I kept a low profile, preferring the quiet satisfaction of working behind the scenes. Then I met Michael. Our paths crossed at a neighborhood coffee shop. I was absorbed in reviewing contracts, dressed in my usual jeans and sweater, when he accidentally knocked over my coffee. "If no, I'm so sorry," he exclaimed, fumbling to save my papers. I couldn't help but laugh. "It's fine," I reassured him, even though those documents were acquisition agreements worth millions. His genuine panic was oddly charming. "Let me make it up to you," he insisted. "I'm Michael, by the way," I said with a smile. "Emily, sure, I'll take you up on that coffee." What started as coffee turned into dinner, and dinner turned into something much more, a relationship. Michael was unlike anyone I'd ever met. He was kind, down to earth, and a high school teacher who genuinely loved his job. He never asked about my wealth, mainly because he didn't know about it. I told him I worked as an executive assistant at M Tech Solutions. It wasn't entirely a lie, I did oversee administrative tasks, but I was also the company's owner. I wanted to be loved for who I was, not what I had. Things were perfect until I met his mother, Victoria. Victoria Patterson was the epitome of social ambition. Her home was filled with imitation designer goods, and her conversations always seemed to revolve around imaginary connections to high society. From the start, she disapproved of me. During our first dinner, she asked, her tone sharp, "Michael, darling, wasn't there a surgeon's daughter I introduced you to?" When Michael defended me, she pressed on, "I just think, given our family's status, you should aim higher. The Pattersons have always married well." The irony wasn't lost on me. Michael had already shared the truth of their middle-class life, propped up by credit card debt and appearances. I simply replied, "I like my job. It's fulfilling." But Victoria's dismissive remarks didn't stop there. At Christmas, while everyone received thoughtful gifts, I got a plain office planner, with her smirking. "For keeping your boss's schedule." Then came the announcement that changed everything. One Sunday dinner, Victoria stormed into the room, waving a newspaper. "M Tech Solutions is looking for a new CEO. This is my chance," she declared. I nearly choked on my wine. While it was true that we were looking for a CEO, the search was highly selective. "You're applying?" Michael asked, visibly surprised. "Of course," she replied. "After 20 years in middle management, it's time I moved into the big leagues." Turning to me, she added, "Emily, put in a good word for me, would you?" I maintained a neutral expression and said, "I'll see what I can do." But she dismissed me with a wave, saying, "I've already called in favors. The board will be impressed by my credentials." What she didn't know was that I was the board. The following week, Victoria arrived at M Tech Solutions for her interview, dressed in an extravagant suit. I watched from my private office as she loudly proclaimed her qualifications in the lobby. When she entered the conference room, her face froze as she saw me seated at the head of the table. "Emily," she sputtered. "What are you doing here?" "Running my company," I replied calmly. "Please, have a seat." Her facade crumbled as she realized I was the founder and majority shareholder of M Tech. I opened her application file and began questioning the discrepancies in her qualifications. Each lie she'd fabricated unraveled under scrutiny. "I think we're done here," I concluded. "Your application is disqualified due to misrepresentation." She stormed out, muttering threats about exposing me to Michael. As she left, I reached for my phone. It was time for Michael to know the truth. "Mom just called me crying," Michael said, walking into my office with a mix of confusion and concern. "She said you're her boss?" "Emily, what's going on?" I motioned for him to sit down. "Michael, there's a lot I need to explain. I wasn't completely honest about who I am. I didn't want to complicate things between us, but now it's unavoidable." I showed him my office, the floor-to-ceiling windows, and the nameplate on my desk. "Emily Walker, founder and CEO." His expression shifted from surprise to hurt. "So, you're not a secretary?" he asked, his voice quiet. "No, I admitted. I founded M-Tech when I was 23. The company your mom mocked me for working at? I built it from the ground up. Hurt flashed in his eyes. Why would you hide something like this? Why lie? I wanted someone to see me, not my bank account, I explained. Do you know how many people have tried to get close to me because of my money or status? I wanted to experience love for who I am, not for what I own, Michael sighed, softening. I understand that, but you let my mother treat you horribly. You could have stopped this months ago. And what would that have accomplished? I asked. Proving her obsession with status right? That wealth defines someone's value? Michael ran a hand through his hair. You're right. I should have defended you. I failed you there. Just then, the door burst open. Victoria stormed in, dragging her husband George behind her, her face red with fury. There she is, the liar, the manipulator. She screeched. George stepped forward, quiet but firm. Emily, this feels inappropriate. Using your position to reject Victoria over personal disagreements. I interrupted him, pressing a button to play the recording of her interview. This wasn't personal, I said. Your wife lied on her application and misrepresented her qualifications. The board made their decision based on facts. Victoria's anger intensified. You think you've won? Just wait until everyone hears about this. The so-called genius CEO who pretended to be a secretary just to trick her way into our family. Michael interrupted her, his voice booming. Mom, stop. Do you hear yourself? You're humiliating all of us. He turned to me, his voice steadier now. You've lied about everything else, our family status, your connections, your accomplishments. It's all been a facade, and I'm done enabling it. George placed a hand on her shoulder, urging her to leave. Let's go, Victoria, he murmured. This has gone too far, Victoria hissed, this isn't over. You'll regret this. As the door slammed shut behind them, Michael turned to me, his face weary but resolute. I'm sorry for everything my family's put you through, but I need to know, where do we go from here? Before I could answer, my assistant buzzed in. Ms. Walker, Mrs. Patterson is in the lobby, causing a scene. Security is asking how to proceed. Michael and I exchanged a look. We handle it together, he said. I pressed the intercom, giving instructions to monitor the situation without intervening unless necessary. On the screen, we watched Victoria ranting and waving financial documents in the air, shouting that I was stealing clients. How did she get those? Michael asked, his face pale. She works in middle management at Patterson, I replied, already dialing Mr. Patterson. This is Emily Walker. Your employee, Victoria Patterson, is in my lobby threatening to expose confidential client information. As the chaos unfolded, a legal representative from Patterson Insurance arrived, informing Victoria of her suspension due to breach of her non-disclosure agreement. She was escorted out, her protests growing faint. Michael stood in stunned silence. I didn't know she was capable of this, he murmured. It's not your fault, I reassured him. But we need to address this openly, with your family, with mine, and with ourselves. 2 months later, Victoria retired quietly. The merger proceeded smoothly, and she found new purpose volunteering at a financial literacy program. At her wedding, she gave a heartfelt speech. A year ago, I thought status and appearances were everything, but my daughter-in-law taught me that true worth lies in how you treat others. Emily, thank you for giving our family a second chance, not because you're a CEO, but because you're a compassionate human being. Michael squeezed my hand as we sat at the table, looking around at our merged family. George was chatting with my father, Victoria was helping my mother arrange flowers, and our employees mingled with relatives. We had rebuilt our relationship on a foundation of truth, moving past lies and pretenses. The future felt bright, together. Success, I realized, meant nothing without people to share it with. Happy, Michael whispered. Very, I replied with a grin, though I do miss that secretary desk sometimes. He laughed. Well, you did say your assistant's going on maternity leave. Don't tempt me, I tease. I might just go undercover again. He laughed. Well, you did say your assistant's going on maternity leave. Don't tempt me, I tease. I might just go undercover again. Victoria overheard and joined our laughter, genuine this time, free from pretense. She'd found something far more valuable than status. Peace with who she truly was. As the celebration continued, I thought back to that first accidental coffee spill. It had led to this moment, proving that sometimes life's biggest blessings come disguised as chaos. Looking around at the people I loved, I knew success wasn't measured in dollars or titles. It was measured in second chances, hard truths, and the courage to be authentically yourself.